Monday we're going off to Amsterdam. Well, there's nothing there. Amsterdam to Oostenrijk to Lucerne. Then we have 2 nights in Lucerne, which means we have a full day available in Lucerne, Wednesday the 29th of August. The proposition is to operate our next optional trip at Lucerne, which is a trip across the lake of Lucerne and up the mountain of Stanzerhorn.
Oh,
yeah.
that's where you go up by train?
Yes, you go up by, first of all, by funicular, and then you transfer to a paper. To get up to 6,300 feet above sea level. You get very nice views up there, and it's also a very good place to have lunch, what we call a mutter scuffle. But with a gondola, it's strictly a tourist thing where you're serenaded. It's not the usual form of transportation in Venice.
And if you look to the right, this is the long water, and this is where the river comes in that feeds the lake. Now, you've probably heard of the poet Shelley. His wife committed suicide in this lake. Her husband was playing around with other women, and whether that's where you got the saying, go jump in the lake, I've no idea, but she certainly did. And at the age of 42, he was much loved by Queen Victoria, who went into a lifetime mourning. She wasn't in. This seats 8,000 people. It's built on the style of a Roman amphitheatre. And if you could go inside, and you can only go inside to performances, you'd see ringed around the walls red velvet boxes almost right up to the ceiling. Now as we come round on the other side, you can see a very decorative house right in front of the coach. It's called the Royal College of Organists. Just look at all that decoration up there with all the little cherubs playing the various instruments. To give them their proper name, and those show that those members of the royal family shop at Harrods, and those crests right from the top represent the Queen, then Prince Philip, the Queen Mother, and finally the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles. And you'll see those crests again at this end of the building up on the wall. Now they're only awarded to stores where the royal household shop, and you have to deal with the royal head on, but let's proceed. It's the busiest junction in the British Isles. Some people will say the busiest junction in Europe, but we're not part of Europe. Europe's on the other side of the English Channel. So it's the busiest junction in the British Isles. And when we get to the top of this road, on the left-hand side, you'll see a sandy colour formed into a museum following his political and military career. There it is on the left-hand side now. Park Lane leads up to our left, leading back up to Marble Arch, and we go with the Wellington Arch, erected to the memory of the Duke of Wellington. On top of that archway is a chariot containing an angel holding the olive branch of peace. And then and just beyond the main entrance, there's a building over on the other side of the wall here to the left, where they keep all the carriages, such as the coronation coach and various other vehicles used in those various ceremonies. The Royal Standard is not flying from it, which means she's away, and also there are only 2 sentries on duty at the front of the palace. When she's in residence, there are 4. You can see the balcony up in the centre there, where the royal family come out to acknowledge the crowns at various times. And these sentries, incidentally, used to march up and down outside the palace gates, but unfortunately they suffered a tremendous defeat at the hands of the tourists, who harassed them so much they had to be put inside for their own safety. Now we're pulling away from the palace now. Over on the left-hand side you can see some beautiful wrought iron gates leading into another of our parks, Green Park. And all these lovely red flowers here to your left are geraniums, and even when there's thousands of people in this area, no one ever walks on them or on the grass. Now all the soldiers that you see on duty outside the palace or taking part in our various processions are all fully qualified soldiers. We don't have any toy soldiers. It's just part of the regiment's duty to take part in mounting the guard or taking part in the various ceremonies. And of course, at that time, they wear their ceremonial uniforms. Now, the Queen, in fact, the entire royal family at the moment are on holiday in Scotland, in Balmoral. So, I don't know when they're actually coming back from their holiday. The Buckingham Palace, in fact, is not a great favourite of our Queen. She much prefers to go down to Windsor Castle. She often goes down there for the weekend. And security is very... And there's just a couple of detectives following another car, and that's it. Now we're pulling out from this area now, leaving the palace on your right. Force, an Englishman who fought for the same end, the abolition of slavery. Now we're going to cross over the River Thames in a moment, and then we're going to come back onto the bridge, so don't waste too many shots because we're going to make a photograph stop, subject to the police that is. Here's Big Ben right ahead of us, on the right hand side, and the River Thames, incidentally, is the cleanest river in the world to be caught in the river since 1833. Now you can see the healthiness of the river by the green algae that you see on either bank, and although the water looks dirty, it's because there are 2 fast-running tides a day, rise and fall of between 18 and 23 feet, so the silt is always in suspension, which makes it look dirty. Thomas's Hospital, and we can thank the founding of this hospital to the world's most famous nurse. So many cameras on this trip. On another occasion, she looked at him and said, "Winston, if you were my husband, I would put poison in your drink." And again, he looked at her for a few moments and said, "Madam, if I were your husband, I would drink it." And beyond him, there's a man standing there with a fancy hat and a sword in his hand, but to rest the horses. Now, the Queen's Household Cavalry is made up of 2 detachments. The Blues and Royals, who are on duty at the moment with white plumes on their helmets, and the Lifeguards with red plumes on their helmets. As I said before, each man has the right to buy his horse when it's retired, and they're very well trained, these horses. Sadly, this is part of the regiment that was blown up by an IRA bomb some 2 years ago, killing several men and horses, and it shows the high degree of training that those horses go through, that the surviving horses, even though the bomb blew up right in between them, they didn't bolt away, they just stood there without going. Back is Charles I, executed on the orders of Oliver Cromwell, and right across the square, that little low building with a black dome, is the National Gallery, our principal art gallery in London. And to the right of that, behind us, way back in the corner, is a church with a spire on the top called St. Martin in the Fields. That's the parish church of Buckingham Palace. Now, do you know who the last King of America was? Someone said George. George III, infiltration. Yeah, I married an American, so we're on our way back already, you see. We couldn't win him in 1776, we get the Duke of York. Now, the Duke of York was a very popular man in the British Army until, I suspect, the day he died, because they then stopped 1 day's pay from every officer and man in the army to pay for that monument, and it is said that they put him on top of that column to keep him out of reach of his creditors because he died in debt. London, even Soho, you're perfectly safe, day or night, but the only thing is, like all major cities around the world, we suffer from pickpockets, so gentlemen, never keep your wallets in your back pocket.
Inside that tower there are 3 floors in the basement. Now for over 500 years, the top floor of this tower was home to the royal family. No longer is it a royal residence. The last king to live up there was King James I. But if you look at the weather vanes up there in the turrets, you will see they have on them the royal coat of arms, surmounted by a crown, denoting that this is still a royal palace.
Well, you know, no, to tell you the truth, I mean, you're supposed to, but in fact, people can get away with it. And I'll show you also CSA stores tomorrow in Amsterdam. What a difference.